I've always been interested in it will typically be called world systems theory, but it's basically like the history of economics over centuries, you know. And I think most academics in that space recognise that we are living through a period of transition now, where what academically we would call the long American century is over, and we are entering into what we will probably end up calling the long Chinese century. And that's really interesting academically to observe that transition. But there's also a political economic side to it of, well, how is China responding to its rising position in the global economy, its rising political power in the global economy? How is America, who is losing that position, responding? And as a British person, as a European, I also think it's interesting the attitudes that, say, my country is adopting, because I think China is a much richer, much more interesting, much more culturally diverse place than the common narrative in the West is. And so for me, it's very interesting just to educate myself about Chinese history and Chinese politics. And then if I can look at, you know, how the Chinese economic model or the Chinese entrepreneurial model, and then you can start putting together the pieces of, oh, well, that's kind of like how economics works in the West, or, you know, most Americans won't admit this, but the Chinese development model is pretty much identical to the original US development model, right? And that's interesting. That's really interesting. And as someone that wants, well, I think I want the world to become a better place, right? We should draw ideas from everywhere. And China right now, yes, there are things that are not going great for them, for the country. Yeah. But there are also things that I look at and think, that's incredible. You know, I want that to happen in Britain. Infrastructure investment, right? Things like that. Like, there are lessons to be learned from all sorts of different cultures. And China is such a interesting emerging force right now. I think everyone in the West should be doing a little bit to try and understand what's going on. Just as I think China, if it is going to become a big global leader, which I think is inevitable, probably needs to, I don't want to say extend an olive branch, but perhaps embrace a bit more its world-leading position, if that makes sense.